Guardian of Shialkodi, Protector of the Realm. Episode-4 Guardian Dawn Legacy, Echoes of Darkness Confrontation. The Sacred Alliance was complete. The elves, dwarves, mages, and druids, united under Aryaman's leadership, stood ready to face the darkness that threatened to consume Shialkodi. Yet, despite the gathering of such formidable allies, Aryaman could sense that the true battle was only just beginning. The darkness had not been idle, it had been growing stronger, preparing for its own final assault on the realm. As Aryaman and his companions made their way back to the sacred citadel, the winds howled like the cries of lost souls, and the sky was a swirling mass of dark clouds, pregnant with the promise of doom. The air was thick with tension, and even the bravest among them could feel the weight of what was to come. Kalaratri, ever vigilant, stayed close by Aryaman's side, her presence a constant reminder of the wolf wife he had married and the power she had bestowed upon him. When they arrived at the sacred citadel, the heart of the Alliance's forces, Aryaman was greeted by a council of his closest allies: Alara, the Elven Queen; Thrain, the Dwarven King; Arion, the Archmage of the Astral Tower; and Fielwen, the Druidic leader of the Verdant Circle. Each of them looked to Aryaman for guidance, their eyes filled with determination but also a hint of unease. Alara was the first to speak, her voice calm but laced with concern. The darkness is no longer just a distant threat. It has begun to move, striking at the borders of our lands. We have received reports of shadowy creatures attacking villages, leaving nothing but death in their wake. We must act quickly if we are to stop this tide of evil. Thrain, ever the warrior, gripped the hilt of his axe and nodded in agreement. My scouts have seen the signs as well. The darkness is amassing an army, one that grows with each passing day. We must take the fight to them before they overrun us. Arion, the Archmage, added, the dark magic at play here is ancient and powerful. Zorath, the Dark Lord, has tapped into forces that have long been buried. This is no ordinary battle. We are facing a foe who has harnessed the very essence of destruction. Fielwen, the Druidic leader, remained silent for a moment, her eyes closed as she communed with the spirits of the forest. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but filled with resolve. The earth trembles with the weight of what is to come. The spirits of the forest are restless, and they tell me that the darkness seeks to corrupt all that it touches. We must stand firm, or Shialkodi will fall. Aryaman listened to his allies, feeling the gravity of the situation settle upon him. He knew that the time for preparation was over, the battle for the fate of Shialkodi was about to begin. We will not wait for the darkness to come to us, Aryaman declared, his voice steady and commanding. We will take the fight to Zorath himself. We will strike at the heart of his power and end this once and for all. The council members nodded in agreement, their resolve matching Aryaman's. But they all knew that this would not be an easy task. Zorath's fortress, the Obsidian Spire, was located deep within the Shadowlands, a place of perpetual darkness where the very air was poisoned with malice. It was a land where nightmares walked, and few who ventured there ever returned. As they prepared for the journey, Aryaman felt a familiar presence beside him. It was Kalaratri, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light of the citadel. The time has come, Aryaman, she said, her voice filled with both love and sorrow. The path ahead is fraught with danger, but you are not alone. I will be with you every step of the way. Aryaman nodded, grateful for her unwavering support. I know. Together, we will face whatever lies ahead. The Alliance's forces gathered outside the citadel, a formidable army that included elven archers, dwarven warriors, mage battalions, and druidic nature spirits. Each faction had brought the best, knowing that this battle would decide the future of their world. As they marched toward the Shadowlands, the landscape around them grew darker and more twisted. The once vibrant fields of Shialkodi gave way to barren, lifeless plains, where the ground was cracked and dry, and the trees stood as twisted, blackened husks. The very air seemed to throb with the presence of dark magic, and the sky was a sickly shade of green, filled with swirling clouds that crackled with unnatural lightning. The closer they got to the obsidian spire, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The army could feel the weight of Zorath's power pressing down on them, sapping their strength and will. But Aryaman's presence at the front of the march was a beacon of hope, his courage and determination giving strength to those around him. Finally, they reached the edge of the Shadowlands, where the obsidian spire loomed in the distance like a dark, jagged mountain. The fortress was a massive, towering structure made of black stone, its surface covered in runes that pulsed with a malevolent red light. It radiated an aura of pure evil, and the ground around it was littered with the bones of those who had dared to challenge Zorath. Aryaman called for a halt, his eyes fixed on the spire. He could feel the darkness within it, a roiling mass of hatred and despair that threatened to overwhelm him. But he steeled himself, drawing on the strength of his allies and the power of the gods who had blessed him. "We stand at the edge of the abyss," Aryaman said, addressing his army. "Beyond this point lies the heart of the darkness, where Zorath waits for us. He believes that he is invincible, that he cannot be defeated. But we will show him the strength of the light, the power of unity, and the resolve of those who fight for the good of all." The army roared in response, their voices filled with determination and defiance. They were ready to face whatever horrors awaited them in the obsidian spire. With a final nod to his companions, Aryaman led the charge into the Shadowlands. The ground trembled beneath their feet as they advanced, the very earth recoiling from their presence. The air grew colder, and a thick fog began to roll in, obscuring their vision and making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. But Aryaman pressed on, his resolve unshakable. As they neared the spire, the first wave of Zorath's minions appeared. These were the shadow creatures that had been terrorizing the lands of Shialkodi, twisted, nightmarish beings that seemed to be made of darkness itself. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, and their claws were sharp enough to tear through steel. The battle was fierce and brutal. The shadow creatures swarmed around the Alliance's forces, their numbers seemingly endless. But the elves fought with unmatched precision, their arrows finding their marks with deadly accuracy. The dwarves held the line with their indomitable strength, their axes cleaving through the creatures with powerful swings. The mages unleashed torrents of arcane energy, their spells lighting up the darkness like fireworks. And the druids called upon the spirits of the forest, summoning roots and vines to entangle the shadow creatures and crush them beneath the earth. Amidst the chaos, Aryaman fought with a fury born of righteous anger. His sword, blessed by the goddess Shialkodi, glowed with a brilliant light, slicing through the shadow creatures as if they were made of smoke. Kalaratri fought by his side, her lupine form a blur of motion as she tore through the enemy with ferocious precision. Despite their efforts, the darkness was relentless. For every shadow creature they defeated, more seemed to rise from the ground, driven by Zorath's will. The Alliance's forces began to tire, their strength waning in the face of such overwhelming odds. As the battle raged on, Aryaman felt a deep rumble beneath his feet. The ground began to crack and split open, and from the fissures emerged even more terrifying creatures, hulking beasts made of molten rock and fire, their eyes burning with the same malevolent red light. These were Zorath's elite warriors, the infernal titans, and their arrival signaled that the true battle had begun. Aryaman knew that they could not afford to be bogged down in a prolonged fight. The longer they remained outside the obsidian spire, the more vulnerable they would become. They needed to strike at the heart of the darkness, to confront Zorath directly before his forces could overwhelm them. "Fall back to the spire," Aryaman shouted, his voice cutting through the din of battle. We must reach Zorath. The Alliance's forces began a fighting retreat, slowly pulling back toward the entrance of the spire. The infernal titans pursued them, their massive forms crashing through the ranks like living battering rams. But Aryaman and his companions fought with renewed determination, knowing that this was their last chance to end the threat of the darkness once and for all. Finally, they reached the base of the spire, its massive black gates looming before them. Aryaman could feel the dark power radiating from within, a malevolent force that sought to crush his spirit. But he refused to be cowed. With a mighty heave, he pushed open the gates, leading his forces into the heart of the darkness. Inside the obsidian spire, the air was thick with dark magic. The walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and the very floor beneath their feet was warm, as if the spire itself was alive. The corridors were narrow and winding, and the sound of distant chanting echoed through the halls, growing louder with each step they took. As they made their way deeper into the spire, the resistance grew fiercer. Zorath's most loyal minions, powerful sorcerers and warriors, stood in their path, determined to stop them from reaching their master. But Aryaman and his companions fought with everything they had, the combined might breaking through the defenses and pushing ever closer to the heart of the spire. Finally, they reached the central chamber, a vast, cavernous space lit by the eerie glow of the runes etched into the walls. At the far end of the chamber, seated upon a throne of black stone, was Zorath himself. The Dark Lord was a towering figure, his form shrouded in shadow, with eyes that burned like coals in the night. His presence was overwhelming, a palpable force of evil that pressed down on the souls of all who entered. Zorath rose from his throne, his voice a deep, resonant growl that echoed through the chamber. So, the Guardian of Shialkodi has finally come to face me. You are brave, Aryaman, but your courage will not save you. The light is weak, and I will snuff it out, just as I have done to countless worlds before. Aryaman stepped forward, his sword gleaming with the light of the gods. You are wrong, Zorath. The light is not weak. It is stronger than you could ever understand, because it is fueled by hope, love, and the will to protect those we hold dear. You may have sown fear and destruction, but today, you will fall. With a roar of fury, Zorath unleashed a wave of dark energy, aimed directly at Aryaman. But Aryaman stood firm, raising his sword to meet the attack. The light from his blade clashed with the darkness, creating a blinding explosion of energy that shook the entire spire. The clash between Aryaman and Zorath reverberated through the obsidian spire, shaking its very foundations. Light and darkness collided with such force that the air itself seemed to ripple, creating shockwaves that sent Zorath's minions reeling. Aryaman stood at the center of this maelstrom, his sword blazing like the sun as it pushed back against the encroaching darkness. But Zorath was no ordinary foe. The Dark Lord had consumed the power of countless worlds, and his strength was nearly incomprehensible. He sneered as he felt Aryaman's light push against his darkness, his deep, malevolent laughter echoing through the chamber. Do you think your light can withstand my power, Guardian? Zorath taunted, his voice dripping with contempt. I have crushed the hopes of entire civilizations. I am the end of all things, the inevitable darkness that consumes all. Aryaman's grip on his sword tightened as he stepped forward, undeterred by Zorath's words. You are not the end, Zorath. You are a shadow, a blight on this world. And like all shadows, you will be banished by the light. With that, Aryaman surged forward, his sword arcing through the air with divine precision. Zorath responded in kind, raising his hand to conjure a shield of dark energy that met Aryaman's blade with a deafening crash. The force of the impact sent sparks flying, the chamber illuminating in flashes of light and shadow. The two powers locked in battle, each testing the other's limits. Aryaman's every strike was imbued with the blessings of the gods, his movements a blur of holy energy. Zorath, in turn, unleashed torrents of dark magic, his attacks fueled by the souls of the damned that he had harvested over eons. The chamber around them began to warp under the intensity of their battle, the walls groaning as if they might collapse under the strain. As Aryaman fought, he could feel the presence of his allies behind him, their courage and resolve lending him strength. Alara's arrows flew with unerring accuracy, piercing through the shadowy forms of Zorath's minions. Thrain's axe cleaved through any who dared approach, his battle cries ringing out like thunder. Arion chanted powerful incantations, weaving spells of protection and destruction, while Fielwen called upon the spirits of the earth to bolster the defenses. Calaratri, in her lupine form, darted through the fray, her fangs and claws tearing through the darkness with deadly efficiency. She fought with a primal ferocity, her connection to Aryaman deepening with each passing moment. They were no longer just warrior and companion, they were two halves of a whole, their bond unbreakable. But as the battle wore on, Aryaman could feel the strain of holding back Zorath's power. The Dark Lord was relentless, his attacks growing more vicious with each exchange. It became clear that Zorath was not just toying with them, he was determined to destroy Aryaman and extinguish the light once and for all. In a sudden, powerful burst, Zorath unleashed a wave of darkness that engulfed Aryaman, forcing him to his knees. The light of his sword flickered, and for a moment, Aryaman felt the crushing weight of despair. The darkness was overwhelming, threatening to consume him entirely. But just as the shadows began to close in, Aryaman heard a voice, soft and comforting, yet filled with an undeniable strength. It was the voice of the goddess Shialkodi, echoing in his mind, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. "Do not falter, Aryaman," the goddess whispered. "You are the guardian of this realm, chosen to protect it from the darkness. Remember who you are, and the light will always guide you." Renewed by the goddess's words, Aryaman's resolve hardened. He pushed back against the darkness, his sword blazing brighter than ever before. With a mighty roar, he surged to his feet, breaking free from the shadows that sought to bind him. Zorath recoiled, surprised by Aryaman's sudden resurgence. The light emanating from Aryaman was no longer just the power of the gods, it was the culmination of his journey, the strength he had gained from every ally, every battle, every hardship he had faced. "You will not win, Zorath," Aryaman declared, his voice echoing with the power of the gods. "Not while there is even a single spark of light left in this world." With those words, Aryaman charged at Zorath, his sword ablaze with the full power of the Sacred Alliance. Every strike was a declaration of defiance, every swing a testament to the resilience of the light. Zorath struggled to hold his ground, his dark magic faltering under the relentless assault. But even as Aryaman gained the upper hand, Zorath unleashed his final, most desperate attack. He summoned all the dark power at his command, channeling it into a single, devastating blast of energy aimed directly at Aryaman. The force of the attack was unimaginable, a torrent of pure malevolence that threatened to annihilate everything in its path. Aryaman knew that this was the moment of truth. He could not afford to falter, not now. Drawing upon every ounce of strength he had left, he raised his sword to meet the oncoming darkness. The light of the gods surged through him, and with a mighty swing, he cleaved through Zorath's attack, splitting the darkness in two. The shockwave of the collision shook the entire spire, and for a moment, there was nothing but blinding light and searing heat. When the light finally faded, Aryaman stood alone in the chamber, his sword still glowing with divine energy. Zorath was gone, his form dissipated into nothingness, his power shattered. The Dark Lord had been defeated. Exhausted but victorious, Aryaman collapsed to one knee, the weight of the battle finally catching up with him. His allies rushed to his side, their faces filled with relief and awe. The darkness that had once threatened to consume Shialkodi was gone, and the realm was safe. Kalaratri, returning to her human form, knelt beside Aryaman, her eyes filled with pride and affection. "You did it, Aryaman," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "You saved us all." Aryaman looked up at her, his heart swelling with love and gratitude. "We did it, Kalaratri," he corrected gently. "I could not have done this without you, without all of you." As the Sacred Alliance gathered around Aryaman, the oppressive atmosphere of the obsidian spire began to lift. The runes on the walls faded, the dark magic dissipating as the light of the gods filled the chamber. The spire itself began to crumble, its foundations weakened by the destruction of its master. With the last of his strength, Aryaman led his companions out of the spire, just as it began to collapse in on itself. They emerged into the open air, where the sky was already beginning to clear, the dark clouds receding as the light of dawn broke through. The battle was over. Shialkodi was free as the sun rose over the horizon. Aryaman stood with his allies, watching as the darkness that had plagued their world was finally banished. The Sacred Alliance had triumphed, and with their victory came a new era of peace and prosperity for Shialkodi. But even as he basked in the warmth of the sun, Aryaman knew that his journey was not over. There would always be new challenges, new threats to face. But he would meet them with the same courage and determination that had carried him through this battle. For Aryaman was the guardian of Shialkodi, the protector of the realm. And as long as he lived, the light would never falter. The collapse of the obsidian spire marked the end of Zorath's reign of terror, but for Aryaman and the Sacred Alliance, it was just the beginning of a new chapter in the history of Shialkodi. The land, once scarred by darkness and despair, began to heal under the light of a new dawn. The people of Shialkodi, who had lived in fear for so long, emerged from their hiding places, blinking in the sunlight as if seeing it for the first time. As the survivors gathered to rebuild, Aryaman found himself at the center of a celebration unlike any he had ever seen. Elves, dwarves, mages, druids, and humans all came together in a display of unity that had not been witnessed in generations. The bonds forged in battle had proven stronger than the forces that sought to tear them apart, and now, in the light of their victory, those bonds would be the foundation of a brighter future. Aryaman stood at the heart of this gathering, surrounded by his closest companions, Alara, Thrain, Arion, Fielwan, and Kalaratri. The scars of battle were still fresh on their bodies, but their spirits were unbowed. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, and now it was time to guide Shialkodi into a new era of peace and prosperity. Alara, the Elven Queen, was the first to address the gathering. Today, we celebrate not just the defeat of Zorath, but the triumph of unity and hope. The bonds we have forged in this battle will carry us forward, ensuring that Shialkodi remains a beacon of light for all who call it home. Thrain, the Dwarven King, raised his axe in salute. We have fought side by side and bled for each other. This is the strength of our alliance. Let this victory be a reminder that together, we are unstoppable. Arion, the Archmage, stepped forward next, his voice filled with the wisdom of centuries. The dark magic that once threatened our world has been vanquished, but we must remain vigilant. The forces of evil are never truly gone, only waiting for their moment to return. Let us be the guardians of this realm, protecting it with our knowledge and our strength. Fielwan, the druidic leader, spoke with a gentle yet powerful voice. The spirits of the earth have sung of our victory, and the land rejoices with us. But we must remember that our duty to this world does not end with battle. We must nurture it, care for it, and ensure that it flourishes for generations to come. Finally, all eyes turned to Aryaman, the hero who had led them through the darkness. He felt the weight of their expectations, but also the warmth of their trust. He had been blessed by the goddess Shialkodi, but it was the strength and courage of his allies that had made victory possible. He took a deep breath and began to speak. We have achieved something remarkable. Together, we have faced the greatest evil this world has ever known and emerged victorious. But our work is not done. The peace we have won must be protected, nurtured, and cherished. It is up to all of us to ensure that Shialkodi remains a place of light, where all who seek refuge can find it. Aryaman paused, looking at each of his companions in turn. This victory belongs to all of us, to every person who fought, every soul who believed in the light. And it is our duty to ensure that this light never fades. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices rising to the heavens in a joyous cacophony. The sound of their celebration echoed across the land, a signal to all that the darkness had been defeated and that Shialkodi was free. As the festivities continued, Aryaman found a moment to slip away from the crowd. He made his way to a quiet hill overlooking the lands they had fought so hard to protect. The sun was setting, casting a golden light across the fields and forests. It was a sight that filled Aryaman with a deep sense of peace. Kalaratri, ever attuned to Aryaman's moods, followed him up the hill. She stood beside him, her hand slipping into his. What are you thinking, Aryaman? She asked softly. Aryaman smiled, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. I'm thinking about the future. About what comes next. Kalaratri nodded, understanding his unspoken thoughts. The battle may be over, but the journey continues. We have a world to rebuild, lives to protect. And we'll face whatever challenges come our way, together. Aryaman turned to look at her, his eyes filled with gratitude and love. I couldn't have done this without you, Kalaratri. You've been my strength, my guide. You are as much a part of this victory as anyone. Kalaratri smiled, her eyes shining with affection. And you, Aryaman, are the heart of this alliance. You've shown us all what it means to be a true leader, to fight for something greater than yourself. They stood together in silence for a moment, watching as the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky was awash with colors, deep purples and oranges that signaled the end of one day and the beginning of another. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Aryaman felt a deep sense of contentment. The journey had been long and fraught with danger, but they had made it. Shialkodi was safe, and for the first time in a long while, Aryaman allowed himself to hope for the future. But even as he embraced this peace, Aryaman knew that his role as guardian was far from over. There would always be new threats, new challenges to face. But he was ready. He had faced the darkness and won, and he would continue to protect Shialkodi for as long as he drew breath. For Aryaman was not just a warrior, he was the guardian of Shialkodi, the protector of the realm. And with Kalaratri by his side, he knew that there was nothing they couldn't overcome. As the night enveloped the land, Aryaman and Kalaratri stood together, ready to face whatever the future held. And in that moment, beneath the starlit sky, they knew that as long as they were together, the light would never fade. The night was quiet, with only the gentle rustling of the wind through the trees breaking the silence. Aryaman stood at the edge of the hill, gazing out at the lands of Shialkodi, now free from the oppressive darkness that had once threatened to engulf it. The stars above glittered like diamonds against the velvety black sky, a reminder of the vastness of the world and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Yet, even in this moment of peace, Aryaman's thoughts were restless. He knew that the battle with Zorath, though the most formidable, was not the end of his journey. His role as the guardian of Shialkodi was one of perpetual vigilance, and he could sense that the world was already beginning to change in ways that no one could yet foresee. The Sacred Alliance had accomplished a great victory, but Aryaman understood that the aftermath of such a battle was just as crucial as the fight itself. The scars left by Zorath's reign of terror would take time to heal, and the people of Shialkodi would need guidance as they rebuilt their lives and communities. As dawn broke over the horizon, bathing the land in golden light, Aryaman descended the hill and returned to the heart of the village, where the Sacred Alliance had established the temporary base of operations. The village, once devastated by Zorath's forces, was already beginning to show signs of renewal. Homes were being rebuilt, fields were being tilled, and the people were coming together to forge a new future. Alara, the Elven Queen, greeted Aryaman as he entered the village square. Her eyes, usually so calm and composed, were filled with a mixture of relief and determination. "The people look to us for leadership, Aryaman," she said. "They have suffered greatly, but they are resilient. We must ensure that the unity we have forged in battle carries through into this time of peace." Aryaman nodded in agreement. "The victory we have won is only the beginning. We must work together to rebuild what was lost and to protect Shialkodi from any future threats. The light we have restored must never be allowed to fade." Thrain, the Dwarven king, approached, his expression serious. "The dwarves stand ready to assist in the rebuilding efforts. Our forges will burn day and night to supply the materials needed to restore the homes and defenses of our people. But we must also be cautious. Zorath may be gone, but there are always those who seek to exploit times of weakness." Arion, the Archmage, joined the discussion, his staff glowing faintly with residual magic. "I will coordinate with the mages to erect wards around the villages and towns. These barriers will help protect against any remnants of dark magic that might linger in the shadows. But we must also focus on education, teaching the next generation the importance of balance, so that they may guard against future dangers." Fielwen, the druidic leader, added her voice to the conversation. "The land itself will need time to heal. We must work in harmony with nature, helping the forests and fields to recover. The spirits of the earth are with us, but they too require our aid in restoring balance to this realm." Kalaratri, standing by Aryaman's side, spoke up as well. "And we must not forget the people. They need hope, something to believe in as they rebuild their lives. We should continue to inspire them, to show them that they are not alone in this journey. The strength of Shialkodi lies not just in its warriors, but in every person who calls this land home." As the leaders of the Sacred Alliance discussed their plans for the future, Aryaman listened intently, weighing each suggestion carefully. He knew that his role was not just to lead in battle, but to guide the people of Shialkodi through the challenges that lay ahead. His heart swelled with pride as he saw the unity and resolve in his companions. This was the true strength of Shialkodi, and it was his duty to ensure that it endured. Over the next few weeks, the Sacred Alliance worked tirelessly to rebuild Shialkodi. Villages were restored, defenses were reinforced, and the people began to return to the daily lives, though the memories of the battle still lingered. Aryaman traveled from village to village, offering his support and guidance, and reassuring the people that they were safe once more. In the capital city, where Zorath's darkness had once cast its longest shadow, Aryaman addressed a gathering of leaders from all the different factions: elves, dwarves, mages, druids, and humans. They had come together to discuss the future of Shialkodi and how they could ensure that such a threat would never rise again. "The darkness has been defeated, but we must remain vigilant," Aryaman said, his voice carrying across the assembly. "We have seen what happens when we allow division and fear to weaken us. But we have also seen the power of unity and hope. Let us continue to stand together, to protect this land and its people, so that the light of Shialkodi will never be extinguished." The leaders nodded in agreement, and a new pact was formed, one that would bind them together in peace, just as the battle against Zorath had bound them together in war. This pact, known as the Covenant of Shialkodi, would be the foundation of a new era of cooperation and mutual protection. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Shialkodi began to flourish once more. The scars of war faded, replaced by fields of crops, bustling marketplaces, and thriving communities. The people of Shialkodi, inspired by the leadership of Aryaman and the Sacred Alliance, took pride in their land and in each other. But even as peace settled over the realm, Aryaman knew that his journey was not yet complete. The goddess Shialkodi had chosen him to be the guardian of this land, and with that title came the responsibility of ensuring its safety for generations to come. There were still dark forces in the world, lurking in the shadows, waiting for their chance to strike. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Aryaman found himself once again on the hill overlooking the lands of Shialkodi. Kalaratri joined him, her presence a comforting constant in his life. "You've done well, Aryaman," she said softly. "Shialkodi is safe, and the people are at peace. But I can see that something still weighs on your mind." Aryaman sighed, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains. "There will always be threats, Kalaratri. Even now, I can sense that the darkness is not truly gone. It's out there, somewhere, waiting for its moment to return. And when it does, I must be ready." Kalaratri placed her hand on his arm, her touch grounding him. "And you will be. You are the guardian of Shialkodi, Aryaman, and you have the strength of the gods, of your allies, and of the people behind you. Whatever challenges come our way, we will face them together." Aryaman turned to look at her, his heart filled with love and gratitude. "As long as I have you by my side, Kalaratri, I know that we can overcome anything." She smiled, her eyes shining with affection. "Then let's not worry about the future right now. Let's enjoy this peace we've earned, and when the time comes, we'll face whatever challenges arise." Together, they stood on the hill, watching as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky. The future was uncertain, but Aryaman knew that as long as they remained united, the light of Shialkodi would never fade. Under the starlit sky, Aryaman made a silent vow to protect the land he loved, to be the guardian that Shialkodi needed, and to ensure that the legacy of the Sacred Alliance would endure for all time. For Aryaman, the journey was never truly over. It was a path he would walk for the rest of his life, ever vigilant, ever watchful, ever the protector of the realm. Years had passed since the defeat of Zorath, and Shialkodi had flourished under the watchful eyes of Aryaman and the Sacred Alliance. The land was vibrant, the people were thriving, and the once distant echoes of darkness seemed a distant memory. However, the world was ever changing, and even in times of peace, shadows of the past could cast long, unexpected shadows. One evening, as autumn leaves danced on the breeze, Aryaman and Kalaratri were strolling through the village, enjoying a rare moment of tranquility. The village had grown, its streets bustling with life and joy. The celebration of the Festival of Light was in full swing, a tradition that had become a symbol of Shialkodi's renewed prosperity. Lanterns floated above the streets, their soft glow mingling with the laughter and music that filled the air. As they walked, Aryaman noticed a figure standing apart from the crowd, cloaked in dark robes. The figure's presence seemed out of place amidst the festival's cheer. Aryaman's instincts, honed through years of vigilance, were immediately alert. Kalaratri, sensing his unease, asked softly, "Do you recognize that figure?" Aryaman shook his head. "No, but something about them feels familiar. I need to investigate." Leaving Kalaratri to enjoy the festivities, Aryaman made his way toward the cloaked figure. As he approached, the figure turned and met his gaze with eyes that glinted with a disturbing familiarity. The hood fell back slightly, revealing a face Aryaman had hoped never to see again, an old ally turned enemy, Aelric. Aelric had once been a trusted member of the Sacred Alliance, a powerful mage who had fought alongside them during the early days of the conflict with Zorath. However, Aelric had been corrupted by dark magic, ultimately betraying his comrades and disappearing into the shadows. Aryaman had hoped that Aelric had been lost to the darkness forever. Aelric, Aryaman said, his voice cold and steady. What brings you back to Shialkodi? Aelric's lips curled into a faint, mocking smile. Ah, Aryaman, ever the vigilant guardian. I see you haven't changed. I've come to offer a warning, a sign of things to come. Aryaman's eyes narrowed. A warning. After all that you've done, why would we listen to you? Aelric shrugged, his expression inscrutable. Because the darkness you defeated was only a part of a much larger scheme. There are forces at work that are even more dangerous than Zorath. I have seen them, and they are moving. Aryaman's mind raced. Why should we trust anything you say? You betrayed us once before. Aelric's expression grew serious. I am not asking for your trust, only your attention. I came to warn you because the threat is real, and it affects us all. If you don't act quickly, Shialkodi could fall into chaos once more. With that, Aelric turned and began to walk away. Aryaman hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. Wait, he called out. If what you say is true, then I need to know more. Come with me to the council. We'll discuss this further. Aelric paused but did not turn around. Very well. But be warned, Aryaman, time is running out. Aryaman returned to Kalaratri and the festival, his mind troubled by Aelric's words. He shared the news with her, and together they decided to call an emergency meeting of the Sacred Alliance. They convened in the Great Hall, where the leaders gathered to discuss the unexpected turn of events. Alara, Thrain, Arion, and Fielwen listened intently as Aryaman recounted his encounter with Aelric. The room was filled with a tense silence as the weight of the potential threat settled over them. I trust Aryaman's judgment, Alara said finally. If Aelric is indeed involved, we must take this seriously. But we cannot afford to panic. We need to investigate further. Arion nodded in agreement. I will consult with the mages and begin a new round of divinations to determine if there is any truth to Aelric's claim. We must uncover the nature of this new threat before it manifests. Fielwen added, I will reach out to the druids and the spirits of the land. They may have sensed disturbances or changes that we have not. Thrain, always pragmatic, spoke next. We should also review our defenses and be prepared for any unforeseen attacks. Even if Aelric's warning is a ruse, it's better to be cautious. As the meeting concluded, Aryaman found himself filled with a renewed sense of urgency. The peace they had worked so hard to achieve was once again under threat, and he would not allow it to be destroyed. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Arion's divinations revealed traces of dark magic, confirming Aelric's warning to some extent. Fielwen reported unsettling disturbances in the natural world, and Thrain's preparations for potential threats ensured that the defenses of Shialkodi were strengthened. Aelric, though distrusted, was kept under watch. He provided vague information about the nature of the threat but remained elusive about the specifics. His presence was a constant reminder of the fragility of their hard-won peace. One evening, as Aryaman reviewed reports in his study, Kalaratri entered, her face reflecting a mix of concern and resolve. Aryaman, we need to talk, she said, her voice steady. What is it? Aryaman asked, looking up from the papers. Kalaratri took a deep breath. I've been thinking about Aelric. Despite everything, there is a part of me that believes he might be telling the truth. We've faced great evil before, but this feels different, more insidious. Aryaman nodded, understanding her concern. I agree. There's a sense of foreboding that I can't shake. We must remain vigilant and prepare for whatever comes next. Kalaratri reached out and took his hand. Whatever happens, we face it together. The strength of Shialkodi is in its unity, and that unity will see us through. Aryaman squeezed her hand, grateful for her unwavering support. Yes, together, we'll face this new challenge with the same courage and resolve that brought us through the darkness before. As the stars shone brightly above Shialkodi, Aryaman felt a renewed determination. The road ahead was uncertain, and the shadows of the past loomed large. But with his allies by his side and the light of Shialkodi guiding him, he was ready to confront whatever threats lay ahead. The Guardian's journey was far from over. New dangers were emerging, and the legacy of Shialkodi was once again at stake. But Aryaman knew that as long as there was hope and unity, they would face the shadows of the past and forge a future where the light would always prevail. The tension that had settled over Shialkodi since Aelric's warning seemed to ripple through the land like a tangible force. The once celebratory atmosphere of the festival had been replaced with an air of unease, and the people's joy was tempered with wariness. Aryaman and the Sacred Alliance were deep in preparation, each member of the group focusing on their own area of expertise to uncover the nature of the new threat that loomed over the realm. Aryaman found himself increasingly preoccupied, both with the looming shadow and the complexities of leadership in these uncertain times. He had spent long hours in the Great Hall, reviewing reports and strategies with his fellow leaders. Each day brought new information, but little clarity on the nature of the looming danger. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the land was cast into twilight, Aryaman received an urgent summons from Arion. The Archmage had discovered something in his studies that needed immediate attention. With Kalaratri by his side, Aryaman made his way to the Tower of Mages, where Arion was waiting. The tower was alive with magical energy, the air crackling with the power of countless spells and enchantments. Arion stood at the center of a glowing rune circle, his face etched with concern. "What have you found, Arion?" Aryaman asked, his voice carrying the weight of his worry. Arion gestured for them to approach. "I have been conducting extensive divinations and scrying to verify Aelric's claims. What I have discovered is both troubling and complex." He handed Aryaman a scroll, covered in intricate symbols and arcane writing. "The dark magic we detected is unlike anything we have encountered before. It seems to be tied to a network of ancient ley lines that crisscross the realm. These ley lines were used in the past to channel great power, and they are now being manipulated." Aryaman studied the scroll, his brow furrowing as he tried to decipher the information. "What does this mean for Shialkodi? Can we counteract it?" Arion nodded gravely. "If these ley lines are being used to channel dark magic, it could mean that a powerful force is gathering strength. It may be attempting to break through the barriers between worlds, or it could be preparing for a massive assault." Kalaratri's eyes widened. "Is there any way to stop this? Can we disrupt their influence over the ley lines?" Arion's expression was resolute. "We can attempt to disrupt the flow of dark magic by creating counter wards and realigning the ley lines. But this will require a great deal of magical power and precision. We would need the combined efforts of the mages, druids, and other magical practitioners." Aryaman's mind raced. "We'll need to mobilize our forces and coordinate with all the factions. We must act quickly before the threat becomes too great." Arion agreed, and plans were set into motion. The Sacred Alliance began working tirelessly to gather their magical resources and prepare for the task ahead. Alara and the elves provided their support with their own brand of ancient magic, while Thrain and the dwarves reinforced the defenses of the realm, ensuring that they were ready for any potential attacks. Fielwen, along with the druids, began working with the land to harmonize the natural energies and counteract the dark magic that was seeping through the ley lines. The combined efforts of all the factions created a powerful network of protection that began to push back against the encroaching darkness. As they worked, Aryaman and Kalaratri kept a close watch on the progress of the preparations. They knew that time was of the essence, and every moment counted. One night, while Aryaman was on patrol, he felt a sudden chill in the air. The familiar sensation of dark magic was more intense than before. Following the feeling, he found himself standing before an ancient, forgotten ruin, an old temple long abandoned and overgrown with vines. Aelric emerged from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with a knowing look. You are perceptive, Aryaman. This place is where the ley lines converge. It is a crucial point for the dark magic that is being channeled. Aryaman's gaze was stern. Why are you showing me this? What is your true purpose? Aelric's expression was inscrutable. Sometimes, even those who have been lost to darkness can find a way to redemption. I want to help, but not for free. There are things you need to know, secrets that will make the difference between victory and defeat. Aryaman regarded him warily. What secrets? Aelric's eyes darkened. The dark magic being harnessed here is not just an external threat. It is a part of something much larger, something that has been lurking in the shadows for centuries. There are forces that seek to reclaim their lost power and dominate this world. He paused, as if weighing his next words. To defeat them, you must understand the true nature. You must learn of the ancient pacts and betrayals that have shaped this conflict. Only then can you hope to counter their plans. Aryaman's mind was racing. If what you say is true, then we need to act fast. But why should we trust you? How do we know you're not leading us into a trap? Aelric's gaze was unwavering. You don't have to trust me, but you need to listen. I can guide you through the temple's secrets and provide insight into the dark forces at work. But you must make your own choices. Before Aryaman could respond, Aelric vanished into the shadows, leaving him alone in the eerie silence of the temple ruins. Aryaman felt a growing sense of urgency. The clues Aelric had provided could be crucial to understanding the new threat, but trusting him was a risk. Returning to the Great Hall, Aryaman shared his encounter with the others. The council debated the merits of Aelric's offer and the potential risks. After much discussion, it was decided that Aryaman, Kalaratri, and a small team of trusted allies would investigate the temple further, hoping to uncover any hidden truths and prepare for the impending threat. As they ventured into the ancient ruins, Aryaman felt a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. The path ahead was fraught with danger, and the shadows of the past seemed to loom larger than ever. But with the strength and unity of the Sacred Alliance, he was determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The fate of Shialkodi, and perhaps the world itself, hung in the balance, and Aryaman knew that understanding the echoes of darkness would be key to securing a future where light could endure.